Good evening. I'm Sterling Benson Weber, and I am delighted to be your moderator for tonight's masterclass. I'm a journalist who spent nearly 2 decades as a news anchor and reporter, and now spend much of my energy on public speaking and civic engagement. I am also a proud member of the Crown Jewels chapter of the Links Incorporated, whose art facet is sponsoring tonight's event. I'd like to welcome all of our guests, but especially our Link sisters who are joining us from visiting chapters both locally and around the region. We'd also like to welcome our guests who are affiliated with several of our Link community partners. We're so glad to see all of you this evening. Before we begin, I'd like to highlight a few important items. For the best viewing in the Zoom mode, we recommend that you do the gallery view option. Also, be sure to adjust your audio so that you can best hear the performances. Please note that all lines will stay muted throughout the program. Plus, there is an opportunity for Q&A later, so we ask that you put all of your questions in the chat section of your screen. And finally, there will be live performances throughout the evening, but be sure to stick around to the very end because there will be a special live performance that you will certainly not want to miss. So let's get started by introducing our outstanding presenters tonight. David Tappin is the facilitator of tonight's masterclass. He is also the brilliant writer and composer of the musical drama, I Dream. Tappin will share much more about this widely acclaimed work about the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. later. Tappin's unique approach to writing and composition is full of innovation and authenticity, arising from his inquiring, analytical mind, his literary background, and his gifted musicianship. Tappin was born and educated in the UK, and his impressive career includes collaborations with the musical director for both Stevie Wonder and the late Michael Jackson. Currently, he's writing and composing Becoming Othello, based on Paul Robeson's year playing Othello at London's famed Savoy Theatre in 1930. Tappin has also written and composed 6 other significant musical dramas, including Deliverer, Diva, and 2042. We're so happy to welcome Douglas Tappin to lead our masterclass. And joining him and performing live this evening is the very dynamic Broadway actor and vocalist Derrick Davis. Some of Davis's most memorable roles include playing both Mufasa and Scar in Broadway's The Lion King. He also had leading roles in Carousel and Dreamgirls. Most recently, Davis starred as the Phantom in the 25th anniversary North American tour of Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera. In 2018, he captivated local audiences in his role as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in I Dream, which debuted right here in Charlotte as part of Opera Carolina's 2017-2018 season. It's my pleasure to welcome the very talented Derrick Davis. And now I'm excited to turn this program over to our facilitator, Douglas Tappin.
Thank you, Sterling. Good evening, everyone. For some, not us, obviously, art is a non-essential part of life beyond any inherent beauty or derivative entertainment there may be. Others, like Aristotle, have asserted that art imitates life, arguing the exact opposite as artists sometimes tend to do. Oscar Wilde said that life imitates art. A third perspective is that of the British theatre director Sir Tyrone Guthrie, who considered art to be a mirror to hold up to humanity, to help humanity see reality itself in truth. And the French playwright and poet Bertolt Brecht rejected the mirror analogy and insisted instead that art is a hammer with which to shape reality. But the question we have gathered to consider is art as advocacy, which means to what extent can art, specifically musical dramatic art, support, plead, or influence in respect of an idea, a cause, an individual, or a group. Now, we're used to other forms of advocacy, but can art also advocate? Can it make an important point? Can it persuade effectively? Now, before we proceed any further, we have for you a pre-poll just to see where everyone's experience, understanding, and opinion is as we begin. There are 6 questions, and they will be available for you to answer for about 2 minutes. And at the end, we'll come back and we'll see what everyone says. So hopefully you can see the poll questions now. I'm starting a timer here, so I'm paying attention to the 2 minutes. First question, what is musical drama? Another name for serious musical theater or opera, storytelling where musical and dramatic elements are equally important, a dramatic play or movie with a musical soundtrack or score, or I don't know. What are your thoughts about opera? Is the second question. There are 5 options there, the last of which is who needs dead music written by dead people? And what is musical theater? There's an option there for all you Glee, High School Musical, Hamilton and Hairspray fans to let us know about that. Fourth question is about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., just your thoughts about who he was. The 5th question is with regards to some historical characters that feature in I Dream, an opportunity for you to say which of the characters who are all historical characters you've heard of, or none of the above. And then the 6th question is about the thought, the notion, a song that you're going to hear later, Victory by Love. What are your thoughts about advocating for a cause or an idea by a commitment to love? And we're about the 1 minute part and just going a little further than that. So you've got about 50 seconds or so before the poll disappears. So please make your way through it and then we'll see what the poll says. Now inside 30 seconds, so I'm not going to count you all the way down, but 20 and a little less than 20. Closing on 15. It's going to go soon. Hopefully you've managed to get through it all. Any moment now, the poll will leave our screens. There it goes. And right now I can see, I hope everyone else can see some of the poll results. I'm just going to read through some of these. I'm going to take notes here also because we're going to come back to these same questions at the end of this. I'm noting that in respect to question 1, what is musical drama? A majority of people, 90%, have said that it is it's storytelling where the musical and dramatic elements are equally important. Question 2, the leading one is question answer 2. I don't go often, but I really do. When I do go, I enjoy it in respect of opera. What is musical theater? The lead there is the 3rd one. Glee, High School Musical, Hairspray, or Hamilton. The 4th question, the leading response there is number 1 at 71% about Dr. King. He was a hero, a one-off. There will never be anyone like him again. And then which of the following historical characters featured in I Dream have you heard of? 92% have heard of Coretta Scott King, 65% Ralph Abernathy. Interestingly, a little less than Coretta Scott King in respect of Rosa Parks, a lot less for Claudette Colvin, a few of you Hosea Williams, very few of you Jenny Celeste Williams, who was Martin Luther King Jr.'s maternal grandmother, and only 4% said none of the above. And then this is what I'm really going to note here in respect of the last one. Never thought about it before. Is the thought of most 21% of you for Victory by Love as a way of advocating for a cause and idea, and 71%, which is a high number. I'm quite surprised by that. Think that strong, practical love can heal and change the world for good. Now, As Sterling said, I'm the writer and composer of I Dream. Now, I Dream is a musical drama, and then sometimes it's been referred to as a rhythm and blues opera. And the focus for I Dream is the last 36 hours of Dr. King's life, and that it begins on the morning of the 3rd of April, 1968. But through a series of dreams and reminiscences, we share Dr. King's experiences of the plight of injustice in the southern United States in a period where the law required and communities practiced segregation. That plight is, of course, dramatized in I Dream, but it is also represented by particular songs and themes. And one of the most significant themes and songs is Will It Always Be This Way? Now, that song features for the first time in Act 1 quite early on. Dr. King wakes from a dream that we will return to later this evening, and he sets out from home on a journey to Memphis, where he's heading to support striking sanitation workers. Now, later on the morning of April 3rd, 1968, Dr. King is just arriving at Atlanta Airport with his traveling companion, the Reverend Ralph Abernathy.
Sir, can I help you with your bags?
No, thank you. I've got it.
You can get mine. Ralph, are you crazy? Or I could just carry myself. How we doing on time?
We should have left earlier. Happy?
Dr. King, could you sign my Bible right here, please?
Fool, ain't you got no self-respect? Get on with your work. I am forgotten. I am stepped over to. I am the worthless one, the last one in line. I am the labeled, once more the branded one, the blame for every wrong is mine. Persecution, I am looked down on. I do the work they won't do. They turn their face away, pretend they don't see. Act like they're special, act like they're right, I'm wrong. They think they're better than me. Will it always be this way? Will it always be this way? Will the place and pride I'm in never change, oh Lord? Slog and sweat for little pay. Will it always be this way?
I Dream touches on 27 years of history from 1941 to about 1968, and it's approximately 2 hours duration. Now, you'll appreciate that in order to do that, it was necessary to bring a focus, and that focus is Dr. King, his experience, his journey, his internal struggle. But I tried my best to personalize that, so Dr. King becomes Martin. Martin to his wife, Coretta, Martin to others close to him. All of that in order to try to get beyond the legendary, mythological, heroic status to find a man with a human nature just like ours, so it might be possible to immerse ourselves in his experience. Now, some say humanity is a composite of body, soul, and spirit. Others say of mind, body, soul, or something else. But for the purposes of I Dream, I am saying humanity, specifically Dr. King, is, as you see in the diagram represented, heart, humanity, and facade. Now, where did I get that from? Dr. King's own words. He said that man is neither hero or villain, but neither is he entirely pessimistic or optimistic, not entirely good or evil, but a synthesis of those things. And as I saw and read and researched and interviewed his heart, I realized that Dr. King's heart had a disposition towards good, a tendency to love, even a compulsion to love. Love as a tangible substance in his heart. Perhaps it was there because it was a gift to him, a gift given maybe for a particular place, purpose, time. But that disposition, that tendency, that compulsion is in tension with the other outer circle, which is his humanity. It's at war with his humanity, humanity that's incapable of love and despises those things, dislikes them, finds them difficult. And all of that is wrapped up within a facade, which is the presentation of self to the world, irrespective of the realities within. So I Dream begins by introducing us immediately to the tensions that Dr. King is experiencing within himself, and also because of the external antagonism of the world he inhabits. I will hand over now to Derrick Davis to sing for us, please, the prologue from I Dream.
begins again, the dream I've dreamed before. A dream of reminiscence, premonition, myth and memory I dream. My scourge, my curse, my destiny I dream. An image of a balcony I dream. Dream begins again with clarity this time. I see a man, a solitary man, with more men crowding at his side. They begin their violent way, make him walk their whipping line. God protect that man, I pray, but my prayer makes his plight mine. A different scene this time, for now I live the dream. A flood of fear comes suddenly, the same men close, they're now surrounding me. Though I long to wield some power, hit them back or raise a gun. Make them back down, make them cower, for the wickedness they've done. My hands stay by my side, won't live to hit back or defend my life. No matter how I try, what kind of man am I?
Thank you, Derrick. This is the question we're considering this evening then. How is transition from a plight of injustice, from a place of oppression possible? Whatever that plight may be. Now, historically, of course, that plight was segregation. At another place and time in history, that plight is something else. Now, does time and patience work? Will injustice tend towards justice even if we do nothing? Is that really the sure and certain trajectory of the moral arc of the universe? Or maybe violence is the way to respond to injustice? Or is there another way, a better, more perfect way? Now, for me, what Dr. King and the brave men, women, and young people who alongside him stood up to injustice and achieved was significant, not only because of what they achieved, but how they achieved it. The basis to changing their world and to changing our world to their approach to succeeding, their way to attaining victory, which you might think is an unusual word, but it's an important word, was not inactivity or violence, but love. By love, I don't mean merely a sentimental notion, but something strong and practical, something demonstrated through a commitment to action, something that was often understood during the time of the civil rights movement and even into our present day as nonviolence. Now, Dr. King said in a number of ways, in a number of different places, that love aims to win enemies over to make them friends. And in order to do that, love has to see the inherent good in them, as hard as that may be, as impossible as that may be, while in ourselves, we have to see the inherent evil that exists there. Because often it's times when we're looking at an enemy, we perceive the enemy as entirely evil and we perceive ourselves as entirely good. For Dr. King, that wasn't at all the case. But this approach isn't popular, and it wasn't popular then either. So in I Dream, Dr. King's commitment to love means conflict within himself. His heart wants to love, but his humanity finds love difficult. But also there's an external conflict, including from those who are advocating a much more forceful, a much more violent approach, an approach that means never forgiving, an approach that means requiring an eye for an eye, demanding retribution, payback, and so somehow perpetrating an endless cycle of hatred, anger, and violence, one that just never ends unless someone sees the way to bring love into that cycle. So towards the beginning of Act 2 of I Dream, Dr. King is in a jail cell. This has happened because he has just been arrested at a lunch counter protest. And one of the people he meets there is Jose Williams, whose life story includes being injured in a bombing attack by Nazi soldiers during World War II, then surviving the savage attack of a racist mob after returning to the United States of America.
You have criticized a system that has beaten more than you. You have sparked a revolution. Will you live to see it through? If Your love can't break these bars. How can love and change our stars and work magic like you promised it would do? I face Nazi troops and war as the noise of battle roared. And when the lynch mob tried to kill me, their worst beating I endured. Though I feel the things you feel, need the things you're preaching of, I have never won no victory by love. If I traveled through this world, if I searched the books of history, if I asked all men who walk this earth, could anyone convince me that the black man can achieve the crazy things you're preaching of? Can our people win a victory by love? Can our people win a victory by love?
That song is an expression of some of the challenges a commitment to love yields as a means of bringing change. And I wrote and composed a dream to demonstrate the extremes that pursuing love can lead us to. And towards the end of Act 2, Dr. King finds himself in a place where he has pursued love as far as he is able to do so. And he has found that the tensions within himself are impossible to manage. And he's also found that the tensions, because of antagonism external to him, are also virtually impossible to manage. And so on the afternoon of April the 4th, 1968, this is where we find the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as Derrick Davis will please now sing for us the song Beginning to Dream.
All the magic is gone. All that's left is a shell. I have given the best that I had. So the sun of tomorrow can dawn or be damned. I am fine if this night is my last. Let the roll of their God be recast. In the hope of the hopeless, my life has been wasted, believing salvation would come. I have preached against war, thought the cause of the poor war won't end, and I'm already clear that the poor ones will always be here. But somehow in great darkness, the stars shine more bright in the light of the moon's midnight beam. I see people beginning to dream. If the people see through me, the future will play like a nightmare I cannot prevent. Will the man I've become ruin the good I have done if my way is downhill from today? I must get myself out of my way. But the people now walk with a new sense of pride, with such dignity, hope, self-esteem. I see people beginning to dream. I did what they wanted. I did all that I could do. Gave till my act was no longer unique. Now, Lord, I have come to the end of my strength. Can you help a man who is frightened and weak? God of magic, perform. Send your flood, send your storm, till my life, like my hope, is all gone. Curse now all I've lived for, wipe my name away, or give me strength so that I can go on.
Remember your childhood, our good times, the bus rides. Today's such a long way from there. You have come to the Jordan, you've shown the way forward. The people can take it from here. I'm so proud of your work, grandson. Well fought and well done. You've shown them that love is supreme. You have done your life's work.
I see people, my dear people, beginning to dream. Worlds of people beginning to dream.
We now want to give you an opportunity to ask Derrick and myself any questions that you may have. Now, in order to submit those questions, please post them in the chat. You should see a link to that at the lower portion of your Zoom application. And I understand there were also some questions that were submitted in advance, and Sterling is kindly going to read the questions for us.
Hey, thanks so much. I have to first catch my breath. That was really an amazing performance. All of the music is so incredibly powerful. Thanks so much. We want to begin, though, with just asking you, Douglas, about the fact that did 2020 and all of its turbulence change your perspective of the U.S.?
Not really. I suppose that let's take COVID out of the equation, shall we? Because that was an unusual occurrence that we're still living through. But if you're speaking specifically about racial injustice and unrest in the United States, nothing that happened really changed my view of the United States. I've always imagined that the anger and hatred that formed the basis to slavery and segregation hasn't miraculously evaporated with the passing of some laws. We're in a much better place than we were in 1968, but there's still a lot of folks in the country who don't like it that way. And as much as we try and win people over and to do what we can to love them and to do as Dr. King says, to look at them as friends and to win them as friends instead of seeing them as enemies, that nevertheless means that it still exists. We're not in a post-racist world, as wonderful as that might be. It's still around. It still boils over. My hope, my heart is that it continues to get better. But no, Sterling, I'm not at all surprised by what is, I would say, simply bubbled to the surface during the course of 2020.
Reared its ugly head for sure. One person wanted to know, how can I advocate for the arts during a pandemic?
Who is that to? Was that to me or to Derrick?
That was to you, actually.
And just to clarify, what do you mean to advocate for the arts or as an artist?
Well, they're actually asking for the arts in terms of their advocacy work. And they wanted to know how they do that, given, I guess, the limitations of the pandemic and the environment we find ourselves in.
I think Derrick, maybe you can speak to that in a moment, but I would say that we're always challenged as artists to be creative. We're meant to be some of the more creative people on the planet. That's the theory anyway. And so any opportunity that you have in any way, whether it's social media, whether it's Zoom, or it's in an in-person gathering where people are masked and distanced, anything you can do to push and to advocate the way that you believe you're called to as an artist, I recommend you do it. I can't be specific, but for you, because I don't know the exact circumstances that you're dealing with or the type of art that you're speaking about. But this, for example, is a way in which we are continuing to speak about the advocacy by dream, the theme of victory by love, the concept of trying to change the world, change our communities through love. And so this is our own creative expression, whilst the opera houses are closed and the actors aren't singing. And if they were singing, we were told they would have had to have been 15, 20 feet apart because they project so much further than average human beings. So with creativity is my short answer.
Thank you so much. We actually have a question now for Derrick. One person wanted to know, tell us about your artistic mental transition from Derrick to Martin. And he said that you can actually see that moment in your facial expressions.
Yeah, a lot of that work happens before the performance. So as a creative individual, as an artist, as an actor, we do extensive research and work in unearthing the emotions, the mannerisms, and the things that inspire, and the history that comes before the moment that we experience in a production. So I've done a lot of work because I've been with the process with I Dream for quite some time now. And so I've done a lot of study about Dr. King and understand him as a person, because emotions aren't unique to any one individual. So if we can understand what an emotion is, if we can tie that to the history that a person experienced and funnel that through their personality, then you can find honesty in the moment of performance. But for today specifically, it's just a matter of taking the work that was hewn out of the stone all the years that we've been working on this project, and just taking a deep breath into the moment, and then just letting the beautiful words that Douglas has penned just tell the story.
They are absolutely beautiful words, and we certainly could feel that. Another wanted to know, how do you recommend that budding young artists begin using their craft to advocate for issues that are important to them?
I think social media is huge. So as young artists begin to develop a following, it's really important to decide what you want your personality to be, what you want your brand to look like. And this generation in particular is so fearless with regards to how they attack things that are not acceptable or should no longer be deemed acceptable. And so through their social media, number one, but also when it comes to art and performance, if you're called upon to do something that you don't feel represents you or represents our current fight towards better properly, open your mouth and speak. The strongest tool that we have as artists is in the creative space, not necessarily on the stage, because though that is, but if there wasn't a Douglas creating something like this, or there wasn't a me working with a Douglas saying, yeah, I think that works, or no, I don't think that works, then the work could potentially be far less impactful than it is. So we have to use our voice. We have a voice for a reason, you know? And so as an artist, we have to speak up in the rehearsal setting, in the audition setting. And then once we get notoriety, make sure that we're using that platform to promote change.
And let me add something to that. I'd say never despise an opportunity. Never consider an opportunity to be beneath you, even if it's an audience of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, or I think in this day and age, so often the tendency is to want to do things for larger audiences and to be more concerned about how many people liked or viewed the thing that you were doing. That shouldn't be in your mind. As an artist, I think your commitment has to be first and foremost to produce and to perform and to write and to put up the best art that you can, even if it's for an audience of 1, and some would say even if it's for an audience of 0, because the tough life of an artist includes those who've gone through their entire life and have never been discovered. And so if your commitment to art and to the craft that you believe you're called to to give to the world is that immense, then you'll do it, and you'll embrace every opportunity that you're given, and you never know when that opportunity becomes, with the benefit of hindsight, the most significant opportunity that you were about to get.
Certainly, it's a gift indeed. One person also wanted to know, is advocacy through art too passive, since you were speaking, Douglas?
Is it too passive? I don't know. Perhaps it's an approach. Because if you have passive advocacy through art, if that art it ends up being a piece of art that 1 million people see all over the world, and every one of those 1 million people is inspired to go and live their best life, then it's not at all passive, it's active. All I'm trying to do is what I believe that I'm called to do, and let the rest of the work be in people's hearts and their minds and their experiences. I've seen a lot of people's lives transformed, communities transformed through the performances of I Dream. I don't know what people leave the theater or the opera house and go and do. I've heard people say that it inspired them to be better people, to live a better life. If 1 million people or one person or 3 people do that, then that becomes in some way active, whether or not the presentation of art itself seems like a more passive approach to advocacy.
Can I just add just a little something to that really quickly? I don't think that it's passive at all, because if you consider something like Hamilton, there was an entire demographic of individuals that were at once uncomfortable with hip hop. And so now, because that's become so mainstream and people have been given window into the world of hip hop, now it's more acceptable. So that's changed a dynamic worldwide just with one piece of stage art. So with something like this, it can totally transform or aid in the movement forward in the fight, for sure.
Yeah, and if you go back to where we started with Bertolt Brecht, art is a hammer with which to shape reality. That a hammer isn't a passive implement. It's something that's very active, very, very strong. And if you do it well, absolutely, you can change communities, change individuals' hearts, change the world.
Wonderfully said. One person wanted to know, Derrick, they said you've performed all over the world, and they wanted to find out a bit about the impact you had on Charlotte audiences. They wanted to know how they were receptive to you.
Oh, they were amazing. They were amazing. I almost moved to Charlotte after I was there. There's just something about what's happening there just in general. It's becoming such an incredible force to be reckoned with, Charlotte. Not that it wasn't before, but the audiences there are they're very warm and very kind. Most audiences are to your face, but in Charlotte, I got a great opportunity to get behind the scenes with people, go to people's homes and break bread with people, which I rarely get the opportunity to do. And it gave me the chance to see that these people are genuinely who they present themselves to be. So that's the only reason why I was like, I could consider moving here for sure.
Great, we'd love to have you. Okay, let's see. There's another person I think wanted to know, what does victory look like today, Douglas?
I'm not a politician, thankfully. I'm sometimes a preacher. And as a preacher, that means I sometimes contemplate what it would mean if the world was a perfect place. There's this passage, I think, somewhere towards the end of the Bible that says that God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, no more sorrow, no more crying, that all those things are going to have passed away. And so I think that victory looks like, on a day-to-day basis, as much of that as is humanly possible. If there's less crying, if there's less sorrow, if there's less death, if there's less hatred. Now, I can't quantify that. I just pray and hope and believe that less of that every day means victory. And so if tomorrow I wake up and there's less of those things than there were today, that's a moment by moment victory. If you're asking me specifically if there is a finish line that we could say with certainty that once we get past that, it's done. I don't know whether that's going to happen ever in anyone's lifetime. I'm looking forward to the day when it's all done, as I've just said, and that's a little of the preacher in me. Apologize for being that esoteric, but I just felt that I had to do that.
Absolutely, well said. Now, all of your work is so remarkable, but I wanted to know, how does being a person of color influence your work?
Is that for me or for Derrick?
well, you specifically, but he can certainly know.
I found that almost every story I write somehow is some aspect of it is something to do with making racial injustice go away. That that was my experience growing up in the UK. I mean, there wasn't segregation in the UK, but when my father arrived there in the late 40s, early 50s, he said that the racism there was terrible, and the no blacks, no dogs, no Irish signs that he found when he was trying to find places to live, and the vitriolic abuse that every one of us got as we grew up informs my writing. I understand what it's like to have someone consider that my life doesn't matter. I understand what it's like to want to assert to the best of my ability the truth that it actually does, and in every other life of every other Black person, every other person of color matters in some way. And so it's a theme that's been weaved throughout I Dream. You mentioned the Becoming Othello piece. That was about Paul Robeson going to the UK and encountering racism back in the early 20s and 30s. And so it's there again. I'm working on a piece about the Freedom Riders. It's the same thing. And so somehow it's not that I can't get away from it. I just find myself consistently in the same space, wanting to advocate for people of color and to see as best as I can bring it about racial injustice assaulted, confronted, challenged, and done away with as much as is possible.
Very well. Someone else wants.
Let me say this also, and there's some things, there's some industries that it's harder to be a person of color in. The opera world is clearly one of them. Opera Carolina are doing an extraordinary job trying to advocate for people of color and to cast people of color in roles that the opera world traditionally doesn't cast them in. But I Dream is being described as a musical drama, but the pushback from the opera world itself, when historically I Dream was called a rhythm and blues opera, was a pushback from essentially white establishment that you can't call this thing opera because it doesn't line up with 100 years of effectively white opera history. That's problematic, but I don't have a problem with that. That's part of the joy of doing this. And so you can write a piece about Dr. King and you impact the injustice of racism and in every way when you try and advocate through a piece like this.
Wonderful. Someone wanted to know, and I guess both of you could address this. What advice do you give to youth who are both artists or activists?
Derrick, would you?
What advice do I give?
Mm-hmm.
I would give them the advice that my brother gives me all the time. Keep your head on a swivel in so many different ways. Be aware of everything that's happening around you, but don't let it change the person that is inside of you. Make sure that every room you walk into, you enter and you lead with excellence, but you hold love in front of you so that people know that you're approachable and a part of the whole. But you just have to be the absolute best that you can be before, because the reason why I say that is because if you try to affect change, but you're less than the best that you can be, people will recognize that and they won't respect you for what you're saying because they don't respect you for what you're bringing to the table. So in order to be an effective individual in any arena, you just have to work hard to make sure that you're really excellent at what you do. And then from there, bring the change, be who you are, just be really strong. The world is tough. It's hard. It's a very divided country that we live in right now. And anything you try to do to affect positive change is going to get dark pushback. It's just going to happen. So you just have to be prepared for it. And the best way that I've found to do that is to make sure that I minimize the things that people can look at me and say, but you this or but you that, so that I can push forward in affecting positive change for sure.
Absolutely. You own your greatness. We obviously see that. One final question I think we have time for. I want to ask Douglas, what advice would you give to the world following the unfortunate events at our nation's capital last week?
It's weird. I'm an artist answering these huge questions. But let me say this: the reason I wrote I Dream was to show as best as possible Martin Luther King Jr. as a man, as a human with a nature just like ours. He was a man who wasn't this godlike, heroic, unattainable person. The things he did, I believe, were the things he was meant to do and the things he was gifted to do. And so my purpose in writing I Dream is to encourage every one of us to do and be the same thing. Now, we may not be great preachers with the powers of speaking and persuasion that he has, or the organizational skills that he had, or the vision and dreaming that he had. But the question is simply this: what is it that you are meant to do in the way that he was meant to do something? And I believe did it to the best of his ability. And he gave his entire life to it. He committed his entire life to it. He wasn't afraid, and he pressed on into it until its end, which was a horrible end, but he didn't shrink back. He wasn't afraid to keep doing the thing that he knew was the reason that he was born for. And so if you are meant to write, you must write. If you're meant to sing, you must sing. If you're meant to speak, you must speak. If you're meant to organize communities. If you're meant to march, leading those communities, march leading those communities. That's my advice to everybody in respect of the events that our world faces. Do what you are meant to do alongside others doing what they are meant to do. And if every one of us steps up and finds within ourselves whatever is in our hearts, and I hope it's love, I hope it's love and not violence, I hope it's love and not hatred, then who knows whether anyone on this call or many people on this call could have a more significant impact on our world, on our culture, and historically be considered to have been a greater man or woman than Martin Luther King Jr. was.
Well, thanks to both of you for your interesting perspective and insight on these very important issues. And now back to you, Douglas.
Thank you, Sterling. So just as we began, we're going to return to the same poll questions that we started with. The poll questions are going to be available for about 2 minutes. They're up now. Let me move them to another screen so I can start a timer. I'll give you a timer countdown. Beginning now. I'll see you on the other end of it. Exactly the same questions as we began with. We're just approaching the minute mark, according to my timer. There may be another timer going somewhere that says otherwise, but mine's the only one we got out loud. About 30 seconds or so, I would say now. And there it goes from our screen, and in just a moment it will reappear, having tabulated everything. And let's see if anything has changed. Let me see how I can process this. There's been a little bit of change in respect of the first question. I think a few more people are saying that musical drama is serious musical theater or opera. More people, I believe, are saying, I've never been to an opera, that I'd like to try it. I think originally it was 71% saying I don't go often, but when I do, I enjoy it. Someone please correct me if I'm misreading some of these. Let's skip to question 4. That's been a significant change. And that's important because at the start, 71% of you were saying that Martin Luther King was a hero, a one-off. There will never be anyone like him again. The point of I Dream is to say that that ain't necessarily true. Yes, he was a hero, but he wasn't a one-off in the sense that every one of us doing the thing that we're meant to do with the gift that we're meant to, that we've been given, can have a significant impact on the world. And I'm seeing that he was a man with a human nature like mine is more pronounced than it was previously. And then if I scroll down to the last question, I think the most significant thing I noted there was that previously 71% said that strong practical love can heal and change the world. And that is now at 80%. So there's been change there also. So even though this is a brief and far from perfect introduction to a musical drama, which when it's fully staged with lighting and costumes and a set and a cast of 50 actors and a 65-piece orchestra, can do so much more than we've tried our best to do so. And I'm so thankful for everybody that made this possible. Derrick for singing so wonderfully. And I apologize that my answers are inexpert so often. But I'm convinced that art can advocate for an idea, a cause, and I think that that's been indicated even by some of your responses to the poll questions that we began with and then came back to. Thank you, everybody.
And certainly very interesting results from our poll, but thank you both, Douglas and Derrick. We are so thrilled that we were able to experience your wonderful knowledge and insight and your incredible talents. We are extremely grateful. I just want to remind everyone to please stay with us until the very end, because as I mentioned, there's that special live performance that you don't want to miss. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the Crown Jewels Vice President of Programs, Arlene Farabee, and I'd like to take an opportunity to thank her for her unwavering support of our effort throughout this tedious planning process. Arlene.
Thank you, Sterling, and good evening, everyone. Douglas, Derrick, on behalf of the entire Crown Jewels Links chapter, our chapter president, Katrina Young, and the arts facet led by Liz Thomas Collier and Nina Ford Jackson, I can't thank you enough for the exceptional experience of tonight's masterclass. As Sterling said, we're so honored that you shared your expertise and talent with all of us, and particularly as we're heading into the King holiday on Monday. A special thank you goes to all of our guests tonight. If I was keeping track, we had nearly 90, and they have included high school and college students, and of course, our visiting links. We hope tonight's masterclass has just whet your appetite for more and more of I Dream. And on that note, I'm here tonight also representing Opera Carolina and Novant Health, the presenting sponsor of I Dream. And I'm thrilled to share that this beautiful, thought-provoking, and compelling work will return as part of Opera Carolina's upcoming season. The dates are going to be posted on our Opera Carolina website very soon, so stay tuned. I can tell you, if you did not see the blockbuster performance which premiered in Charlotte in 2018, you're in for an unforgettable experience. And if you did have the pleasure of seeing it, you'll be pleased to know that Opera Carolina will unveil a new version of I Dream. So either way, the performance is something you do not want to miss. And if you can't wait until then, Opera Carolina will have a virtual event on Monday celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. King. And you'll get the chance to engage with not just Douglas and Derrick, but the full cast of I Dream as you see on screen. So check out our Opera Carolina website and our social media platforms for that. In closing, the themes of I Dream are timeless, and now at a place when our country's in need of healing and unity more than ever, it is especially meaningful that the dream the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed and shared with America and the world still resonates. And with that, it is with sheer delight that we close tonight's masterclass with a final live performance from the dynamic Derrick Davis.
I turned my back on apathy, that cowards compromise. Now there are men like you with murder in their eyes. I know the way of love will break this harsh regime. That is how I dream. Somewhere beyond these white stone walls, beyond the present day, far beyond this fetid, filth-stained prison cell, I pray. Way beyond the valley of despair, where there's no hope, so it may seem. I dream. I dream all heaven's children, white and black, will live in peace. Learn to value unity, mercy will increase. More than all this senseless hate and violence, sick men perpetrate and scheme. I dream that our world will live love's way. I dream love will overcome and bring a better day, till the day comes, until its flame appears. Love will be my only theme. Love is how I dream. I dream this blessed nation might fulfill its founding creed. All people are born equal with a fair chance to succeed. Pursue life's opportunities to freedom's edge, to liberty's extreme. I dream that our world will live love's way. I dream love will overcome and bring a better day, till the day justice rolls like water and love flows like a mighty stream. I will sing that freedom ring, that freedom ring, that freedom ring.
Bravo. Amazing. And thanks for all of you for joining us. Good evening.